This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Tuesday, the 3rd day of May in the year 2022. I'm Gordon Mosley, thanking you for joining us, and here's what we're tracking tonight. President Irfan Ali opened a national media conference this morning and gave the assurance that his government is not spying and will never spy on journalists or any other citizen. The president gave the assurance after the Guyana Press Association warned media houses to guard themselves against spyware that could be used to track their movements and contacts. The GPA requested that the government assures that there is no such activity taking place locally. The president said it will never happen under his government.
This government has no intention whatsoever. It has not even contemplated my mind to move in any direction, to have any spyware or whyware or anything to spy on anyone. That is farthest from my thought. I have not even imagined something like that. So take it out even your imagination now. It will never happen, at least under this government.
President Ali said he does not believe any government should be spying on its citizens, and it is something that his government will never do.
No government must be spying on their population. None. Not in the democratic construct of a free society. Not in a democratic construct. So, please, don't let the imaginative thought process enter mainstream communication where it doesn't exist.
The president also said his government respects the work and role of the media, even when it is facing criticism from the very media. He called for responsible reporting and noted that the media has an important role to play, bridging the gap between citizens and their leaders and providing them with accurate information.
Responsibility is a heavy weight. It's a heavy weight. But responsibility must be carried. Understanding. But you can't be responsible if you don't have decency. If there is no decency in reporting, if there is no standard and values by which you're holding yourself accountable, then you will never be responsible. Because you will believe you can write whatever you want because I have a newspaper, I own a newspaper, or I have a pen and a paper, or a TV station, or something,
The Guyana Press Association, in its World Press Freedom Day message, said the association is urging journalists to be wary of what they download and from which sources on their mobile phones and other electronic devices, as such acts can potentially install spyware that can access their information and contacts. According to the GPA, media houses should of necessity take the requisite action to minimize the surveillance and monitoring of their work in violation of the freedom to receive and impart ideas. It was noted that state intelligence gathering agents no longer have to monitor journalists and media houses around the world by their physical presence, since that can now be done using spyware to ascertain the sources for journalists and to also impose sanctions and take other actions against those sources and journalists themselves. This year's World Press Freedom Day was observed under the theme Journalism Under Digital Siege. More news coming up in just a moment.
How fast is fiber? Think fast. GTT Fiber has 3 packages with download speeds of 50, 100, and 150 megabits per second. That's fast enough to stream movies and music, to chat with Gran and Fran, to study, and more. What would you do? Upgrade to GTT Fiber today and don't get left behind tomorrow. Live your fantasy at Fantasy Gaming Lounge. Win big daily. Millions in cash prizes every week. Now located at Giftland Mall, Fantasy Gaming Lounge, the best bet in town.
Dance Weekend, Genesis Band, and Utopia Launch 2022.
7 exciting events,
Starting with Touchdown Cool Effect with Patrice Roberts.
on Wednesday, May 25th.
Stinging Nettles.
El Dorado Rum Inclusive
With Soca Sensation Kes the Band.
on Thursday, May 26th.
Moderation with rising dancehall artists Skang, Chenille Meir,
Drew Thoven, Golly Ras, and Kush,
as well as
Chutney Ray,
featuring Ravi B,
Kenneth Selleck,
Bacardi,
Tony Cuts,
Bonita Willie,
and Shakti Strings on Friday, May 27th.
Snakes and Dirty Duvet, as well as Eden.
A gold and white toga party
On Saturday, May 28th.
and Soca and Wine.
On Sunday, May 29th. Are you ready
Are you ready?
to see the hot costumes for Cricket Carnival?
That will be displayed at every event.
Brought to you by Hits and Jams Entertainment
King Leo Promotion.
and the Cricket Carnival Committee.
Follow our social media pages at Genesis Band for more details.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get your
color.
Buster, Buster $100, dollar. Come get your Buster, Buster $100, dollar.
Turning now to the oil and gas sector, opposition leader Aubrey Norton today said the government appears to be creating an environment for ordinary citizens not to benefit from the country's oil and gas resources. His comments came in response to statements made by Vice President Bara Jagdeo last week while addressing an outreach in Berbice. At the outreach, the Vice President said inadequate revenues are currently flowing from the oil and gas sector, and he urged citizens to temper their expectations. But today, the opposition leader said the government, through the vice president, appears to have set the stage for very few to benefit from the country's oil resources.
At the government's outreach at Bath West Coast Berbice last Wednesday, he quashed the hope of Guyanese citizens by stating that there is inadequate revenue emerging from the oil and gas sector. This is a lie. It is a clear attempt to ensure that our people do not benefit. It is also a violation of our people's basic rights. In this case, Jagdeo again recited his government's claim that Guyana's current and projected oil revenue are inadequate to lift the living standards of the masses.
Mr. Norton also said the opposition is convinced that the government's approach is intended to deprive Guyanese of their benefits, while a selected few will see the benefits.
Exxon's own projections show Guyana moving from 120,000 barrels of oil per day in 2020 to a minimum of 800,000 barrels of oil per day in 2025. This represents an increase of over 550% in only a few years. It will result in a gargantuan surge in GDP unmatched by anything in our country's history. Within a few short years of oil production, Guyana GDP will have doubled. The problem, however, is that the PPP is preventing these resources from meeting our people.
The opposition leader noted that his party is convinced that Guyana's current and projected oil wealth, once well managed and used to fund a holistic people-centered development strategy, can end poverty, expand and lift the quality of life for all Guyanese, and generally transform the country into a developed state. The government has repeatedly said that all citizens will benefit from the oil resources. It has pointed to massive infrastructure works being planned and other initiatives that will provide employment. The Guyana Power and Light Company recorded some 103 power outages last year, exceeding its 90 targeted outages. The company is, however, blaming the COVID-19 pandemic for the increase in those power outages. That's according to an order issued by the Public Utilities Commission with respect to the review of GPL's operating standards and performance targets for the year 2021. In that review, the PUC said that GPL noted that the COVID-19 pandemic hampered its usual schedule of maintenance in 2020, and the increase in planned maintenance activities was a direct result of that increase to 103 outages for the year 2021. Recognizing the challenges faced by the power company in 2021, the PUC said it endorses the views of the Guyana Consumer Association regarding GPL's improvements in its quality of service and its continued efforts to upgrade its infrastructure. The Utilities Commission said while it has noted GPL's performance last year and noted the need for improvements, the company will not be penalized. At arriving at that decision, the Commission said it is cognizant that the imposition of penalties is often a measure of last resort for events and not to be applied lightly. Therefore, the Commission said after careful consideration and review of the targets achieved and GPL's projections for improved service, it has determined that no penalty is warranted for the company's performance last year. The Commission, however, noted that it will continue to monitor GPL's performance to ensure that a proper rollout and implementation of its projected measures, which will serve as a direct benefit to consumers and those who will see improved electricity supply. In the education sector, all schools in Guyana are now fully opened after being closed for almost 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But even as students are back in the classroom, the Education Ministry is seeking out ways to bring students up to date with the curriculum and to counter the learning loss. Speaking on the reopening of the schools today, Education Minister Priya Malik-Chan said one of the ways to address the learning loss issue is to have the new school year begin early, possibly during the July-August vacation period.
We have to find ways to make sure these children get exposed to the hours of education they need, that we have parents who are interested and the attitudes are right. We may have to work into July, August.
The minister also said opening schools during the traditional August vacation period will be dependent on stakeholders who are willing to work to make it possible. She, however, said the extra learning hours are now necessary since some worrying trends are appearing among the students.
So we have real issues academically to pursue. We are administering or have already administered diagnostics. That's to check to see where students are relative to where they should be, and that's how we're going to be teaching.
While students are returning to school and will be in their correct classes, teachers will be administering the work for the previous year to those students. For instance, students who are in grade 4 will be administered grade 3 level work and then move forward.
So we've consolidated the curriculum to be able to make it have students get exposed a year before. So that when we used to have 40 weeks of learning in any year, we've consolidated it into 20 weeks.
The education minister said the changes are necessary to bring students up to speed, and she said she hopes that teachers countrywide are implementing and adapting to the changes. Republic Bank has announced that it has raked in $109.1 million at half year, which ended on the 31st of March. The company said total assets of the bank stood at $16.97 billion at the end of March, an increase of $0.93 billion or 5.8% over the total assets at March 2021. The increase, the company said, was mainly due to growth in customer deposits across subsidiaries in the Cayman Islands, BVI, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago. In announcing the results, the chairman of Republic Bank Financial Holdings, Vincent Pereira, said the profit represents an increase of 6.02% over what was reported for the same period in the previous year. He said while the performance remains 7% below the bank's pre-COVID-19 2019 half-year performance, it continues a satisfying upward trend in the group's performance. Union leaders called for unity in representing the rights of workers as they pressed the government for not doing enough to tackle the rising cost of living and still not budging to increase the minimum wage for the private sector. Thousands of workers marched through the streets across the country on Sunday in observance of Labor Day. The General Secretary of the Guyana Trades Union Congress, Lincoln Lewis, in his message to workers, said workers in Guyana continue to give of their labor, which is being devalued daily as inflation rises. Mr. Lewis also accused the government of not being fair in its treatment of workers in the country, noting that while some have enjoyed benefits and rescue packages, the majority of other workers did not. And the veteran trade unionist also complained about the various industrial issues surrounding the Berbice bauxite workers remaining unresolved, despite various governments being in place. He said those workers must be respected and treated fairly. Meanwhile, the Federation of Independent Trade Unions of Guyana, FITAG, issued another call on the government to raise the minimum wage in the private sector. The union complained that although there have been agreements on the minimum wage moving from $44,200 to $60,000 per month, the government has failed to implement the agreed change, although it continues to see the effects of the rising cost of living and the hardships being faced by many citizens.
Some things are inescapable. The triumph of good over evil, the resurrection, light after darkness, and the spring of love. Ladies, it is time. Call your mothers. Call your daughters. It is time. Super Stylistics presents the inescapable spring of love. Secure your spot to participate at the Mother and Daughter Pageant 2022. Yes, you heard right. Call us on 226-2825 or 626-0460. That's 226-2825 or 626-0460. The Mother and Daughter Pageant 2022.
Tell it to your enemy and tell it to your friend. Watch Guyanese girl, them a hurtle, and them a do it in a circle. Watch me, missing each and every year. Flashback come again. Tell it to your enemy and tell it to your friend. Well, if you're ready for the party, yeah then. Flashback, tell them a the trend. Follow me sing. This are not talking about a fly nor no bees. No girl can whine like Guyanese. Watch the girl, them a do it in a circle. Guyanese girls, them a dance in a circle. Hear me and say, you know me go banter, you know I sound boy killer, I represent the Golden Smile family, you know say flashback, old school party. You know say, oh, the vibes is plenty. Slow down.
Live your fantasy at Fantasy Gaming Lounge. Win big daily. Millions in cash prizes every week. Now located at Giftland Mall, Fantasy Gaming Lounge, the best bet in town.
We've got exciting news! All 12-ounce yellow cab Buster are now only $100. Buster, live in
Come
full
get
color.
your Buster, Buster $100. Come get your Buster, Buster $100. Fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up, fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up, protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guy Oil's Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guy Oil's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
Across the region tonight, activists in the British Virgin Islands are protesting against a proposal to put the overseas British territory under control of the United Kingdom, days after the BVI premier was jailed in Miami on charges of conspiring to traffic drugs. A report released on Friday that was commissioned by Queen Elizabeth's representative to the territory said governance problems are so severe that the legislature should be suspended and the territory effectively governed from London. That report came just a day after BVI Premier Andrew Foy and the territory's Director of Ports were jailed following a sting by the Drug Enforcement Administration of the U.S. in a major embarrassment to the United Kingdom. Over the weekend, hundreds of people rallied in the island of Tortola, chanting slogans and holding signs that said, "No to UK rule." In Ecuador, the president has declared a state of emergency in 3 western provinces because of rising crime. He tweeted that a curfew will be imposed and thousands of soldiers and police officers will be sent to those 3 provinces. Ecuador has seen a sharp increase in murders and gang-related crime. This is the second time that the president has used emergency powers to curb violence since he took office last year. The president said a curfew, which will only be enforced in certain areas, would be from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. He said society will not be subdued, but the peace will never be sacrificed to criminal gangs. And finally tonight, international news. Germany has announced that it is prepared to back an immediate European Union embargo on Russian oil, a major shift from Moscow's biggest energy customer that could let Europe impose such a ban within days. Russia's energy exports, by far its biggest source of income, have so far largely been exempt from international sanctions over the war in Ukraine. The Ukrainian government says that loophole means European countries are funding the Kremlin war effort, sending Moscow hundreds of millions of euros every day. The German chancellor, who has been more cautious than other Western leaders in backing Ukraine, has been under growing pressure to take a firmer line, including from within the Social Democrats' own governing coalition. In an interview broadcast earlier today, he said sanctions will remain until Russian President Vladimir Putin signs a peace deal with Ukraine. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting and encouraging you to stay safe.